When you give something, it automatically means you have something. Treat every day like it's your last day and serve somebody, help somebody. Jesus was, I am this, I am God's son, I am the king of earth, I am the kingdom, I am the light, I am the way. It's like, whoa, dude, that ain't humble.
I was in the military for many years. I worked in corporate for many years.
To me, forgiveness is healing, forgiveness is love, forgiveness is consciousness, forgiveness is evolution, forgiveness is abundance, forgiveness is prosperity.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Conscious Leader Podcast. If you're new to the channel, welcome. And if you like this episode, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Today, I have a very special guest, two very special guests. It's the first time I have two guests on at the same time. I have J-Ryze and Cynshine, and they're going to introduce themselves, but it's a unique powerhouse and a force. So I hope you guys are ready today to learn, to digest, and truly, what is it called? Rebelpreneur yourself, your career, and your life to that next level. How are you both today?
I'm awesome and amazing.
Good.
Me too.
That's so great. So, J-Ryze, I will start with you. Please share who you are, who you serve, and how you're influencing and impacting lives around the world, I might say.
Thank you. Honored to be here. I am J-Ryze, serve rebelpreneurs. I do so by elevating someone's consciousness, but I introduce myself as a business consultant, personal branding consultant, or mental health messiah. So,
yeah, but really, the underlying force, your mission, your purpose, your message really is to help raise the consciousness, their spiritual consciousness. And I love that's right. And I love the term of rebelpreneur, because I think that is going to start, more people are going to be using that, because there is a shift from conscious leadership, conscious businesses, conscious consumerism to spiritual. That spiritual shift is happening. Many people are not aware of it. Some are. But this goes, you're going beyond the, okay, say the affirmations and, do the meditations and those things. Yes, it's great. And you talk about it, but you're taking it every layer like an onion. You're always peeling it back. And I know this because we follow each other on X and I do follow along. So I'm actually going to go with that. Cynshine, please share with us, because a big part of this dynamic duo and raising the consciousness, that based on my understanding and my experience, is really you're there as that support system to help J-Ryze and support him as he's helping to lift the consciousness. And people don't recognize they need help. People like J-Ryze who's raising consciousness, they also need that support. They need that help. And this is where you come in. So please share with us what you're doing, how you're supporting him to raise the consciousness.
Well, I'm Cynshine, and I co-host our podcast, Eyes Wide Open. And we started the podcast because I felt really selfish, right? So I felt selfish because I was getting all this wonderful, amazing advice and all these amazing perspectives that I had never heard anyone talking about. And if you go to any of our content, any of it, you could just close your eyes and pick one. You will see for yourself immediately what I'm talking about. And so my goal is to help as many people find the level of healing that I am. I still have a long way to go. There's a lot of content for us in the future because I am mid-journey. But sharing how Jay has helped me, this is how I am able to support him, to show other people what's possible, because I'm a normal person, and like 5 minutes with Jay and you'll see that he's not normal in the most respectful, loving way.
I know what you mean. Yes.
Yeah, he's just a little bit higher of a consciousness than the rest of us. And I know he doesn't, like, makes him a little uncomfortable because of his ego issues in the past and whatever, but it's just true. I'm not saying anything that's a lie. It's just true. And so people seeing me as a normal person, I'm not up there with him yet. Seeing someone like me healing and the practical ways that Jay has taught me to heal and that we teach others. This is how we want to lift the collective, because healing is easy. You just need a different perspective sometimes.
100%. And it's in the feminine. We sometimes we recognize who we are, and like that nurturing, that supportive being, and sometimes we don't realize how much higher in our consciousness we are than what we say we are. And so I do not for one second, I mean, we're all on our journey, but I do not for one second underestimate the level of your consciousness and where you are right now in that journey, because it takes a very special type of person day in, day out to support someone like Jay. And because he can be easy to be around at times.
I love that.
use this because first of all, he's and Jay,
I feel seen. I love you.
I understand, because remember, he's going out there, and please correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm going to ask a question with this after, but Jay, you're going out there, you're dealing with all kinds of personalities, you're helping businesses, you're helping brands, and I'm not just talking like new startups. You're working with some top people in their industry who are very popular. They have millions and millions of people following them, and you're working with them. So there is so much. And then at the same time, you have your own people that you're working with. So, and you're still clearing out your consciousness, because you have to be attuned and aligned and doing all of these things daily. So someone has to feel the brunt of it sometimes. And Sin, you're holding on, young lady, and you're doing a really exceptional work in keeping him organized and on track. So for that, I commend you and I thank you.
Well, thank you. And I love Jay. He's the best. And it is not easy, in the sense of, there are times I feel guilty for not being further along. When someone, sorry, I don't mean to get emotional. When someone gives you so much for so long, and teaches you so much, where I've always been an A+ student, and I graduated with 4.0, and so not being at the level that I would like to be after 6 years, that part is difficult. But Jay is he's a total joy, and he's amazing, and he's so supportive and loving. And we have issues like everyone else. It's not like he's perfect, but he really comes from a place of love. Even when he's yelling with passion, it's still a place of love.
But yeah, and that's the thing, sometimes people idolize those who are in this, like on a different level.
Yeah, put him on a pedestal.
Yes, and
Yeah.
they either put them on a pedestal and they think, well, no, they're perfect. They never yell. They don't get angry at anything. and it's not that they're not getting angry. It's just sometimes there's so many things happening, and they're dealing with so much that it may come across as curt. It may come across as short, but it's not necessarily meant to be that way. And so I completely understand. So thank you for sharing. And one of the things that you said was that he's so giving and loving. I will share. Before Jay and I started, and I'm sure you've seen, the messages in the beginning. You responded to some of my tweets. I responded back to some of your tweets, and you even asked questions about, what did I really mean by certain things? And so that's how the conversation started. And that's where I understand about that giving piece, Jay, and where you come in, and as well as any one of your followers, even in your comments. I see, mentioning you're just so giving. And I want to ask you, Jay, why are you so giving? We live in such a time where people are all about me. And then some people are saying, well, I'm here to serve, but really it's about me. You are genuinely going out of your way to say, how can I serve you? How can I help you get to that next level? And you do it unassumingly. You do it with like open arms. You do it in a very kind way, even when you're asking a question and you're helping anyone that you're in communication with, like really pinpoint what is it, like what's the spirit behind this. My question is, why?
Well, first of all, thank you for all the kind words, both of you. I very much appreciate it. And to answer your question, when I was a kid, I was raised by two Christian parents to be giving and loving, but I gave with an agenda still. I gave with ego and selfishness and so on. And it landed me homeless for 3 years. And having nothing and being homeless eventually taught me that I can give no matter what. Like I can give without agenda at any time, because when you give something, it automatically means you have something, right? A lot of the world's obsessed with having things. And when I was homeless, it would have been nice to have things. But to have things, you kind of have to give. Like giving automatically means having. So when I was homeless, I didn't get out of it until I began giving without agenda. Because giving without agenda sends a message to the universe, and that message is, I have X, I have Y, I have Z. I have many things because look, I'm giving.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I can give some service or abundance to others, then that means I have service or abundance for myself. So I didn't know this at the time. I figured it out later. Like after I got out of homelessness, I looked back and saw what happened from a higher perspective. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. When I finally gave without agenda, and I didn't care if I lived or died. I didn't care if it was my last day on earth. I just decided to give, treat every day like it's your last day and serve somebody, help somebody. And finally, my giving that I was taught as a child had evolved into something more pure, a pure form of giving, a more pure form of giving. I'm not like the world's best or anything, but that led to me having more. And so we're all meant to serve. Every particle of the universe is meant to serve something else. That's why it exists. If you examine it, if you examine nature, you'll see everything serves something else. And when a human being learns to serve others in the ways that feel natural to them, they become in harmony with nature and they start to thrive. And so giving to one person is giving to all people, and giving to someone else is giving to ourselves, or having. And so there's a strange relationship between giving and receiving, or giving and having, or giving and being something that most people aren't aware of. But when you finally become aware of it or get the hang of it, a lot of things click into place. So I've learned to practice giving as purely and as helpfully as I can. And that practice always pays off. Like that practice always brings results. If you practice something important in your life, then it's going to pay off. Like it's a valuable thing and you're happy to continue practicing it. And so because I have tried it and experimented for myself and seen how well the practice delivers, I will gladly continue giving until forever.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And like,
it's so beautiful.
So humbling. Yeah. It's super humbling to get a definition such as that about the giving and receiving. There are many works out there, and I'm sure you both are aware of this, and some people listening, may be aware too, talking about the art of giving, the art of receiving, even forgiveness, because that's whole part of the process. And I'm going to ask you a question about that as well, about forgiveness. But you said that there was that virtue that you learned in your parents' home, right? That art of giving, the virtue of giving. And then it evolved to while you were homeless at the time, and you were humbled in that state. Not because you didn't have any, it's probably started off with maybe, I don't know, but correct me if I'm wrong. Probably start off with, okay, I don't have anything, but I have this to give. And that's a level of humility and surrender on, I would say on a quantum level, on that energetic level where, you're seeing this and then you're saying, but I have something still to give. And that practice has evolved. So one, thank you for that. And two, what does that humility and surrender looks like? And on top of that, does forgiveness play like an integral role in that?
Yeah, good question. I have a lot to say about humility and confidence because they're two important sides of the same coin that seems like nearly everyone gets confused about. And I also have a lot to say about forgiveness.
Yes, a lot to say about everything.
Yeah, we got time. Don't worry. People will tune in. We will take little clips. You will get all the clips. Don't worry.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, that's why we have the podcast, right? Yeah. Eyes Wide Open is just me deep diving on something for an hour.
While I cry.
Yeah.
While Sin cries, yeah. Best summary of the podcast.
It's a great summary, actually. It's pretty spot on.
Yeah. What's your podcast about? I deep dive for an hour while Sin cries.
Yeah, pretty much. And heals, though. And heals. The cries and then heals. So that's the important part.
Yeah, we left out the important part.
Yes.
Anyways, do you want me to speak on humility first or forgiveness?
You speak on what comes to you and what you're supposed to share in whichever way it needs to be shared.
Okay. So you're right that I had like a major ego when I was going into homelessness. And by the time I came out of it, life had humbled me quite a bit. I thought I was hot shit and I was all that. And, I had tested with a high IQ and was placed in a gifted program, and I had an easy time in school and things came easily to me, and I barely had to try to succeed for a good chunk of my life, which made me entitled and arrogant and superior and judgy and cynical and bitter and all these kind of things. I wasn't super nice, although I seemed super nice. Excuse me. At the time, I was good at putting on a facade or a mask. I got to experience overconfidence, right? I got to experience entitlement and superiority and holier than thou self-righteousness. And then in my homeless years, I got to experience being a worthless failure who accomplished nothing and had no shelter and couldn't fit in with society or achieve even basic minimal results that anyone would expect for their life. And I had to make peace with, make peace with death, with dying, with suicide, with starvation, with whatever, with nothing to speak of, like nothing to my name, died with, here lies J-Ryze, died with 2 nickels to rub together, or here lies J-Ryze, died failing 20 businesses, or here lies J-Ryze, unable to even find a roof. You know what I mean? Like, I really had to make peace with being the least of us, pathetic, worthless, useless, that kind of thing. And so that was the other end of the spectrum. I got to experience overconfidence, and I got to experience ridiculous, meek, humble worthlessness. And that spectrum of self-worth is made of two extremes, but generally there's a sweet spot where you're not too humble and you're not too confident. If you look at a culture like America, many people there are overconfident. They think they can do anything to anyone, and they have no limits, and they're just like, they can take over the world, and they're better than their leaders, and they're better than their politicians, and they're better than their business people, and they're better than everyone. And it's like, dude, look at you. You've accomplished nothing, and you don't have the character traits to accomplish anything, and I don't see you getting them this lifetime. I mean, not to judge, but like, I don't know where your confidence is coming from, sir. This is not healthy. Like, you are stomping all over everybody with your ego. And then I come to Australia here, and there's sort of an opposite vibe. There's tons of really talented people here who are way too modest, and they won't speak up about themselves or self-promote, and they won't get out there. And there's a chance for them to volunteer or contribute their gifts, and they just sit on them like, oh, I don't want to step on toes or ruffle feathers, or I don't want to stand out. They call it tall puppy syndrome. These are just sweeping generalizations about these cultures. Of course, there's every kind of person everywhere. I'm just using them to illustrate a point. And to me, there's a sweet spot. And so oftentimes when we meet people in one area or another, they're going to be too humble or too confident. And then that's where problems come in, right? I mean, you can't really be too anything, but it's relative. If you're being more confident than the situation is calling for, there's going to be backlash. And if you're being too humble or more humble than the situation is calling for, there's going to be consequences. And so these words, humility and humbleness, or confidence or overconfidence, are kind of confusing. And I get into debates or arguments with people about them because I think they're using them wrong, right? They'll tell me I should be more humble or something. And I'm like, no, you're like way too underconfident. I was having a discussion on Twitter, on X, with someone in your field or something similar, I guess. He teaches leadership. He's a leadership guy. Mm-hmm. And he was insisting that leaders should be humble. And I said, look at every leader you've ever looked up to. How humble were they? Go ahead. Even look at Jesus or Buddha and tell me how humble these men were. You telling me they weren't confident? They weren't proclaiming who they are and what they are? Jesus was, I am this. I am God's son. I am the king of earth. I am the kingdom. I am the light. I am the way. It's like, whoa, dude, that ain't humble. What you talking about? I ain't never seen humility like that. That's confidence. And the argument just went on, and he wasn't hearing my point. And I was like, all right, well, whatever, like, suit yourself. Wish you a great life. I think you could probably reread what I've written here and maybe take some value from it, or maybe I'm missing something. But I don't know if you guys agree, but I've noticed that most leaders are either too confident, like overconfident, and it's unpleasant and not super helpful, or they're wannabe leaders who could be leaders, and maybe they'd be great leaders because they're such nice people, but then they're too humble to ever make it as a leader.
I understand completely what you're saying. I
Totally
read, not
agree.
just read, and I've been around my fair share. And as a woman of with a dark skin tone, you have to learn how to stand up for yourself. And you also have to understand as women, we pick and choose our battles, so to speak. I don't know if that's the right choice of words, because people are coming with so many egos. And there's so many wannabe leaders. I was in the military for many years. I worked in corporate for many years. I did my leadership training. I even now, like, I read a lot of leadership books, and I have where I unpack leadership material. And man, woman, past, present, and I believe even in the future, they had to have a particular confidence about them. They had to have it. In some areas, yes, they are humble, but you're not necessarily seeing it when they're on the battlefield. You look at Napoleon, he was confident when he went all the way into Prussia. He was confident. But when he was home with his wife, he was humbled, right? And so you, as a leader, you have to know when and how to do it. Similar, you brought up Jesus, you brought up Buddha. Jesus was confident in who he was, of who he is, what he's representing, his mission, his message. Yet still, he was humbled enough to wash the feet of his disciples and those that were with him, and to share wisdom and to guide them accordingly, like with a gentleness about him. Now, of course, people are wanting to construct a narrative that would suit their position, obviously, but it is very important to see all perspectives and aspects of it, because if we don't see it from that holistic view, then we get that tunnel vision, and then it's like, you don't get it just yet, but I know you will one day. And exactly like what you did, you just got to say, thank you. Let me know when you're ready to have a conversation.
Absolutely. Cyn?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything you said was it was brilliant and beautiful. And when you talked about Jesus being humble and like, you are, I always tease you and say you're the best and the, the worst, because you are this amazingly confident human being, but you're also humble at the same time. And I didn't know Jesus or anything, but I can see a similarity. I'm not saying you're Jesus. I'm just saying I see that similar humble confidence and love that's inside you. And so, yeah, I think, yeah, everything you say is spot on. I agree with everything you always say, usually.
But yeah.
I'm honored. Thank you.
And so now from you go from that humility, that surrendering, that forgiveness piece. How did that transpire? How did that evolve?
Yeah, great question.
Delisa, you go ahead and answer that.
I thought you were just going to answer the question like everyone else.
No, he does not do that. He has to ask as soon as you're like get comfortable. You ask your question. You're like, okay, let's. No, he's gonna turn it around and ask you.
You turn it around. Great. Yeah, I know. I wasn't expecting that, but that's
Yeah,
okay.
right?
I'm here.
You think he's gonna zig, and he zags, girl.
He zags.
Mhm.
Now I know. Okay, thank you, Sid. You should have sent it to me in the email.
My bad. My bad.
But for me, forgiveness is that releasing, that letting go of whatever it is that, in my opinion, this is where I'm at in my life right now. That release, that letting go of something that you think has hurt you in a particular way, whatever that is. And that is the essence for me of forgiveness, that letting go and that release.
I love that. And Cyn, what's forgiveness to you?
Well, to me, it's loving myself regardless of the mistakes or whatever I perceive as being the negative thing or the thing that I'm hurt about or other people have hurt me about, right? And so letting go of that, of the pain, I guess, and being okay with who I am and the other person as well.
Okay, so
I hope that
kind
made
of
sense. Kind of the
it's
same
similar.
thing and similar, but yeah.
Yeah, you two have a similar take on it. So I'm going to share my understanding or definition of forgiveness, which is similar to yours as well, but maybe there's some nuances. before I answer the question. And so we're all on the same page about what I'm answering. So the word forgiveness has the word give inside it. And we talked about giving earlier. And I said, when we give, we automatically have. And so when we forgive, I see it as related to that. I see giving and forgiveness as related. And so with any moment or situation in life, when we forgive something, someone, somehow, some way, we are actually giving of ourselves to the moment. It's a little abstract. It's like a little woo-woo. But I think everybody knows in practical terms what I'm talking about, because we've all had moments in our life where we weren't really serving and we weren't really giving anything. We were like petulant and selfish and annoyed, and afterwards we look back on that moment and think, man, I could have handled that better. And it's like, yeah, you could have handled it better because you could have gave of yourself. You could have forgave whatever was going on in that moment. And so to me, forgiveness is about bringing love and consciousness and perspective to a moment. It's a gift that you can give in that moment, and we don't always take it. And so we're not always forgiving things. Like, we're not always forgiving ourselves and others and life in every moment, but we could be. It's technically possible, right? Again, I believe it's what Jesus and Buddha did. They forgave in the majority of moments, whatever was going on. They brought forgiveness to it, and they gave of themselves, and they brought love and consciousness to that moment. And by doing that, they transform the moment and they evolve themselves and others. Whenever we skip doing that or fail to do that or miss an opportunity to do that, there are less ideal outcomes. And when we do it and we actually nail it and we bring forgiveness to the moment and love and consciousness, or whatever you want to call it, when we give of ourselves despite what's happening or in the face of what's happening, then we thrive and we blossom, and more ideal outcomes are generated. And so if you look at life, if you were able to chart your life and Syn's life and the life of your clients or the life of your friends and family on a graph, you could mark down moments of forgiveness. Was it one moment of forgiveness, 10, 20, 100, 1,000, a million, a billion? And if you did that and you looked at humanity, I'm fairly certain that you would see prosperity and thriving directly in relation to the amount of forgiveness a person was able to bring to their life. So to me, forgiveness is healing, forgiveness is love, forgiveness is consciousness, forgiveness is evolution, forgiveness is abundance, forgiveness is prosperity. It's like the key activity or perspective that any of us can bring to anything ever. And if the world had more forgiveness, we'd have a better world. And if you have more forgiveness, you'll have a better life, because it all comes back to giving and service anyways. And what you both said about letting go and releasing and forgiving, I believe holds up. I believe it fits in with my definition, because not letting go is sort of anti-forgiveness. But I felt I could add some clarity to all of our definitions.
I genuinely love that definition of forgiveness. I never took the time to dissect the word for and give, and they are two separate words. They put it together, and we can do a history lesson on that. But I genuinely love the fact they said, in that moment of forgiveness, you are giving something. There's a release, yes. There's a love, yes. But you're also giving. And that piece that you just said there, man,
Powerful,
people, I
isn't
hope,
he?
yeah, I hope people pick up on that. I really genuinely hope you did. And if you don't, rewind or go back a few minutes to get that definition, because in forgiveness, you are giving. You're giving to others, you're giving to yourself. You're also doing release work and loving. All like it's this beautiful, intricate pot. I like food pot that you make a stew in that tastes really good. But to
Exactly.
forgive, yes, yes.
That's the
So
part of the episode that I say, there's the clip.
there's
There's the
always that one.
clip.
There you go. So now we went through the point. You went from arrogance, overconfidence, I'm better than everyone kind of attitude, to humility, confidence, and forgiveness. And now you emerge out, butterfly, and you started this whole rebelpreneur culture. How do you go from this one thing where everyone's thinking humility and you're going to be quiet and submissive and all of these things that are associated, or what people may think is associated with humility, with forgiveness, with surrender and a bit of confidence, right? To rebelpreneur and still being authentically you?
Another good question.
You are welcome. Don't ask me to answer it.
I'm grateful.
Careful, then he'll start asking you questions.
I know.
Actually, I am going to ask a question. Do you guys believe?
Told you.
Do you guys believe each human being has a calling of some kind?
I do.
Sin?
Yes and no. I think that as humans we're here for a reason. I think we can choose that reason. And so I think finding something that we love to feel good about and do is our reason. I don't think there's only one, though.
So if we all have some kind of calling or multiple callings or something calling us, then it doesn't really matter how humble or confident I am. I just need to move towards that calling and good things will happen, right?
Yeah, whatever feels best for you in the moment. If you move towards that thing that's calling you, whether it's one thing today or something tomorrow, doesn't matter. If it's moving you in the moment and it feels right to you, then yeah.
So let's say my calling is to help rebelpreneurs.
Okay.
And I have an opportunity to do that. Someone invites me on a show, or I'm in a conversation and someone's talking about entrepreneurs or rebels or something, and I remain too humble or too meek or too small or underconfident to speak up and contribute.
Mm-hmm.
Would you call that temporarily avoiding my calling?
Yes.
Okay. So then that kind of humbleness was unhelpful in relation to my calling.
Yeah.
At that moment. So it would have been better for me to be more confident and more in people's faces, a little bit more vocal in that moment.
Yeah, because your purpose, your calling is to help rebelpreneurs, and they can't find you unless you're loud.
Right. And then in another moment, if I'm talking to a rebelpreneur and maybe we're having a disagreement or something, and my calling is saying you're going to help this rebelpreneur most if you pick your battles and revisit this another time or drop your argument or something. But I push onwards because I need to be right, or I know I'm right, or I'm feeling extra confident or something. And I push onwards, and then I repel that rebelpreneur and we go our separate ways and we never really talk again.
Mm-hmm.
Was that confidence, that overconfidence in that moment, hurting my calling temporarily?
Yes.
So can you see how it's almost not up to me how humble or confident I am in any moment? It's up to my calling or whatever serves my calling. If life is calling for me to step up and be more confident by 3 degrees, then really I have very little choice. Like I either step up and be confident by 3 degrees in order to serve and fulfill my calling, or I don't and I temporarily hurt my calling. So most people think of humility and confidence as something they choose. Like I should be more confident, or I should be more humble, or I should be less confident, or I should be less humble. And it's like, it ain't about how you should be. It's about what the moment calls for regarding your soul, your nature, your life purpose, your life journey. It's going to be different moment to moment. And so
Right.
the people who navigate life well are the ones who know when to be humble and how humble to be, and when to be confident and how confident to be. And if you can do that, you're going to thrive and soar and rise and evolve and like prosper. And the people who get it wrong, like fairly often, they're the ones who suffer. It's like, dude, you were humble when you were supposed to be confident. You were confident when you were supposed to be humble. Like you're not following your calling at all. And you're temporarily hurting your life purpose and your journey and your goals and your desires and your dreams. And until you get a handle on that, you're probably not going to make a lot of progress. So humility and confidence are more like 2 legs on a balance beam. And you really need to use both moment to moment to keep your balance and move forward on your journey properly.
Okay.
So for
I got
me
you.
and rebelpreneurs, that's what I did. That's what I do. I aim to be humble when it's called for, and I aim to be confident when it's called for, and I practice that. And so sometimes that means standing up for rebelpreneurs and saying my piece and holding my ground and setting boundaries. And other times it means picking my battles and letting things go and working around people's quirks.
Sorry about the noise, you guys. I don't know if you can hear it because they're mowing the lawn right outside the window. Oh, okay.
No.
Oh, good, because it's super loud for me. But yeah, that's a really good point, and I liked the balance beam image. So thank you.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
I think that explanation of it makes total sense, and it comes back to you have to know who you are, being in alignment, and recognizing when, like the when, the how, the why. One thing I say to my daughter almost on a daily, and then she throws it back at me. I ask her why a lot because she asks me why a lot, and then the other question is like, what is this what you should be saying in that moment? Do you know what you're actually saying?
Mm.
And it could be about anything, not just randomly, right? It could be sometimes it's because maybe she's upset with something or she wanted to do something. I'm like, but I wanted to do this, and I was like, well, stop and think. Why would I say no? Well, because and going in, or why is this, or and do you think that was an appropriate comment at that time? Well, I just felt upset. It's okay to feel upset. No one's telling you not to be upset. But your words were just fired at someone. And if it's me, I'll say, you shot words at me. Why would you do that? How do you think this would make me feel? How would you feel? So coming back and tying exactly what you're saying, that humility and the confidence and finding the balance really is understanding why am I saying what I'm saying? Is this the right environment to do it? How am I doing? Who is my audience? Like the 5 W's, right? That we learn in English school that we got to ask ourselves
Yeah.
in language arts class. We have to ask ourselves when we're answering this question about our calling, about our mission and message. And you have clearly outlined it. Now, I know you didn't finish answering the question on your part because of all of that, but you've clearly outlined it because so many people are out there talking about, well, follow your heart and follow your dreams and your passions. They're not supporting the growth of others to be able to do it in a holistic and healthy way. It is not healthy. And it sends people on that, as you were mentioning, that massive spectrum, like either super high, super low spectrum. And then they don't know, like, how do I find this good balance? And so, how you mentioned the balance between is understanding the 5 W's of language arts class, and everybody all around the world has taken language arts. It doesn't matter what we speak, the 5 W's, and then walking on that balance beam between and uh, the confidence and the humility, and then forgiveness all the way, the giving all the way. Wow, powerful for me,
Yeah,
anyways.
it's super powerful, and you only got like a couple minutes here. Like he could go on and on about all of those three topics separately.
Of
Like
course,
even the podcast, like sometimes I'm like, man, I gotta
we gotta
stop.
do that.
We gotta edit this. We gotta stop. Because sometimes when we're together, we go to Starbucks and we stay there for like 3 hours talking about one topic like this. So out of the three, Jay has some incredible perspectives, and I'm so excited to see him helping waking up other people to what's possible.
Sin, I have a question for you. So
Sure.
Jay shared his journey, and we're not done yet because I still have like 2 more questions, and we have 10 more minutes. So let's
All
keep this
good.
to 10 minutes,
All,
please.
all good.
Oh, um, so now you come in the picture. He's found his groove. He's getting his balance. He's practicing, um, you know, what he believes. He's following through with his rebelpreneur mission. You come on the scene, and then all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I received value from you, Jay, and I just want to support you on this journey. I want to be there and do what I can, however small it may be, to give back for that one other soul that needs to hear this message. How has that evolution, and you mentioned earlier 6 years, how has 6 years transformed your life while working alongside Jay, being in his presence, serving as well, because you're also serving?
Well, I'll be honest. I didn't always appreciate it. I wasn't always the most humble or confident or forgiving. And we had a lot of ups and downs because Jay is the first divine masculine I've ever known. And he is the first grown up relationship I've ever had. And so there was a lot of bumps along the way. And I was imperfect. And I've grown a lot though, because when we met, I was still addicted to painkillers. I had a lot of physical issues, a lot of mental health issues. I mean, I still do, but I mean, we all do. But Jay taught me that I was valuable and I was worthy to fix it. So for years, I thought, like, this is just who I am. Like, I'm supposed to be in pain, physical pain, emotional pain, that there were just little pockets of happiness in my life. And I mean, tiny little pockets. Uh, and so I thought that's how life was. I thought that's how everybody in the world was. And then I met Jay, who is such a happy, positive person. You can't be negative around him. Like anytime And it's kind of annoying sometimes when I just want to complain and be negative. He won't allow it. Not that he like doesn't let me, he just, his energy and his positivity
Yeah.
and always seeing the good in everything. We had issues with his flight and returning home, and I haven't seen him in 6 months, and like all he is like happy about returning home and happy, seeing the positives, and we're getting closer and more progress, and like that's him all the time. No matter what negative thing you give him, uh he will make it positive. He will find the positivity. So that was a huge change for me. Being around, I love my family very much, but they're very negative people, and
Mhm.
I was raised to be the same. And so to be around somebody who is just uplifting constantly, whether it's the food we eat or the
Yeah.
clothes I wear or my makeup or my or whatever we're doing, whether it's helping people or helping me, he's always lifting and being positive and loving. And so this was opened my eyes to that there's good in everyone.
Yeah.
Villains are made, not born. And so I considered myself a villain for many years. Uh but I chose to be. And so Jay taught me how to tap into the loving, positive side of myself. And it's still a journey, especially being around other negative people more. It's kind of like walking through mud sometimes, but like he's always there with a smile and positive, even if we're arguing, uh, or annoyed about something else. There's always, look at his smile, like he now he's just always like that, always. And so that to me was the most life changing, to see what's possible, what a person is capable of being, to be. And because we all know his story now, right? He
Mhm.
was an arrogant person, he was angry, even if he was nice about it, he was not a nice person. And he could do a complete 180 and be this loving and giving and soulful and like otherworldly person.
Yeah.
And that means if he could do it, so can I. Right. and
Yeah.
and so I have done a 180 also. I was angry, I was hateful, I was mean. I still have my moments. I still occasionally someone cuts me off. I still hope they step on a Lego, but it used to be I used to be worse. I used to like wish way worse on them. And so yeah, that's a huge change for me in my life, to see the positive and be a loving person even when someone's being hateful and mean to me. And
Yeah.
so I mean, I could go on and on and on literally about the things this man has taught me, the things I have changed, how it's changed me physically, emotionally, mentally, like spiritually. I could go on forever, but I think the main
Yeah.
core thing for me is being a positive and loving person. That's how he changed me the most.
What I'm hearing, and please correct
Hope I
me
answered your
if I
question.
misunderstand from what you said, the same pattern and evolution that he went through in his life is the blueprint, essentially. Now, we just got a rough outline, right, based on what he said, is
Mhm.
essentially similar to like a blueprint of what he uses to influence and impact and help transform others who are willing to
Yes.
get to that next level
Yes.
because he was there.
Yeah.
He's bringing you the solutions if you're ready to receive. And based on what you said in the 6 years journey, now obviously a client and of course you are very different, and the transition will be different, obviously. But you're sharing that it is that process. He was homeless, and not just not even with the homelessness, but I would focus more so on the humility, the
Mhm.
confidence, and the forgiveness piece. For 3 years, he practiced that. 3 years. That's 365 times three, perhaps longer, right? Where it was like, okay, now you're ready for that next step. So please do not underestimate where you are at. one, your client, but also the relationship is very, very different from a client. And two, it took him 3 years plus,
Yeah.
and he's working, and then he evolved into the rebelpreneur and working with coaches and leaders and executives and all these people. And he's essentially taking that same blueprint of what he learned. It took, I'll say 4 years. I'm just going to say 4 years, because even after the 3 years, you're still leveling up and you're still evolving, and taking that blueprint, bringing it into the unique situations, but not holding on to it, because everyone is different and they're in different stages and places in their life. Wow. I think for me personally, that level of depth and understanding, empathy, and willingness to serve regardless of what, like regardless of an expectation, because there is no expectation. You don't necessarily see that or hear about that unless they are in some cave in the Himalayas. But he's not. He's in Australia right now. So there you go, in a hotel room.
Well, that, like, him giving me all that love and all that help, and that's why I started the podcast, right? Because he gave me all this for free. When we met, like, the first year, we weren't even really together. We
Of
weren't.
course.
He wasn't interested in me. We were just business partners.
Yes.
I was totally in love with him, but he wasn't interested in me, and um like, he gave so freely to someone he wasn't even like, he wasn't thinking, I'm gonna have sex with this person, or I'm gonna be with this person. It was just freely giving to help me. And
Yeah.
so I have to do that now. Like,
Yeah.
I'm called to help people. I'm called to go on podcasts and share him. I'm called to share him with the entire world. I could be, like, old me would have been selfish and been like, oh, I get all this juiciness to myself. But no,
Yeah.
like, that's so, like, you talked about calling earlier, and I have a few surrounded around the whole thing
Mhm.
that is Jay, sharing him with the world, right? Getting him on the world stage, getting him bigger clients, getting him seen by more people, because it's not for him. Yeah, I love him and I want him to
Yeah.
have all the accolades and all that stuff. Great, as a thank you for what he did, but because he touched my life so deeply and helped me so much for free without expecting anything from
Yeah.
me. And so that's why we give also. So
Yeah.
that's why I encourage the giving and the service too, for me,
Yeah.
because it's my thank you to him and to the world.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm really thankful that you decided to be here today, and for answering the questions so openly and honestly and being part of the conversation. And the reason why I'm sharing that, I'm thankful that you are here and that you're answering questions that I've asked you, and also what Jay asked you, which totally surprised me, by the way. But is because sometimes people don't recognize and understand that, yes, you're working with an authority in a field or a leader in their field, and they see them in one way, or they idolize them in one way, in which he's like, no, 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 don't do that, I'm not, and he's genuine about that, like, no, I'm just here to serve. But it's on the back end piece, right? It is that everyday, day to day work and service that others don't see. They don't see him having to get up at a certain time. They don't see the meditation piece, the prayer piece, the quiet and solitude that he may have to take. They're not experiencing, as you mentioned, maybe 6 months he's gone. Um,
Or
but
that his
yeah,
wife gives him a lot of crap for it too,
yeah,
and he has
no,
a lot of
but the thing is,
gets a
they're
lot
not
from me
seeing
too.
that,
Yeah.
and but at the same time, you're still holding it together, right? And you have to be at a particular level of consciousness to be able to support that, because it is not easy. And it's also not for the faint of heart. And Jay, I know you already know this, so that's why you're staying quiet. But it is not for the faint of heart what you are doing, and the space that you are holding for him, as well as for so many others. Because as you are holding space in the home, as you know, most women do, like, and I'm not trying to get into stereotypes or anything like that, so please,
Oh, I'm a
people, yeah,
traditional wife. That's
yeah,
yes.
they don't you know, that space of holding and that nurturing with the feminine, that because you're doing that for him, he is best able to serve. But there's a lot of sacrifices that come with it. And there's a lot of, like, they don't see the things. But anyways, thank you for that. And I really wanted people who tune into this and is still on here listening in, of the value and the service of what it is that you're doing. So I know I'm not Jay, but please take what I've said to heart, because
You made me cry, so thank
yes.
you.
Well, then there you go, Jay. I don't know. I think she was already on the verge of crying anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, it
As
doesn't
we're
take much. I'm
we're
sorry
wrapping
for
up,
the lighting too, by the way. I guess it's gonna storm here, and it just got dark all of a sudden.
well, that's okay. Listen, we're wrapping up, so then we won't get cut out, because I want to make sure that you get your goodbye in as well. Jay, before we go, I want to ask you, please share in like a couple of sentences. Don't ask me questions, but in a couple of sentences, how can people, raise their consciousness and get to that space to forgive, that space of giving?
Yeah, I'm happy to. It's really just practice. Like, practice choosing love over fear. Practice choosing forgiveness in every moment. Like I said, if you had a graph and you measured, you would see the people who forgave more thrive more. So practice it. Give it a shot. And it's not going to be effortless, right? That's the whole point of practice. When we practice shooting baskets at a basketball net, or we practice rollerblading, or we practice writing, it takes effort. You got to make sure you put in the practice. And most people, sort of say, are acting very lazy. They are avoiding the practice that life is calling for. They are given opportunities to practice every day. Life gives us little quirks and annoyances and negative situations and unexpected things and unpleasant things all the time. And it's not doing that to be mean or to make life hard. When I was homeless, in a different mindset, I blamed life and God for everything. But all those situations I was in, those terrible, terrible situations, were just an opportunity to practice. And I didn't take a lot of them. And so then my homelessness dragged on. But if I practiced more and better, if I took every single opportunity, if I forgave in every single moment, if I showed love in every single moment, I would have prospered and thrived, and I would have transformed very quickly, and I would have been out of homelessness much faster. I guarantee it. I would take bets on it. And so that's my advice, is practice love and forgiveness in as many moments as you can, and do your best to recognize when life is serving you up an opportunity for that. Try not to be triggered and not to blame life or act like the world's against you, and instead take it as a moment to practice. And if you do, you're going to blossom. You're going to rise.
Thank you so much for sharing that. How may we get in contact with you?
I'm at Rise Online everywhere, or you can go to jryze.me.
Okay, great. I want everyone to know that we will have all the information in the caption, and we'll be tagging J-Ryze and Cynshine on the platforms so
And
that you guys could connect. Yes?
also, don't forget to get your free PDF copy of the world's first self-help coffee table book, written by Jay, edited by me, all the art done by him. EyesWideOpenFree.com.
Okay, well, listen, I'm going to be getting my copy because I need to review that for my Boss Chronicles. I got to review
Nice.
that one. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you guys both so very much for being on here. You were the biggest crowd that I've had on a podcast, the longest one that I've had on a podcast,
Yay.
and it has been the most insightful one. So thank you so very much to the both of you. Um, Thank you all for tuning in. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and I will see you on another episode. Bye.
Thank you so much.